Let's talk more about this assimilation issue. So there are all these refugees that have come into Germany. What percentage of them were Islamic versus Christian or any other denomination, would you say?
I think over 90% of them are Muslims, but
Okay.
that doesn't mean that they pose any danger to the German society. Those who pose a danger to the German society are the ones who have been carrying arms in Syria, who have been indoctrinated by Qatar, by Saudi Arabia, and they fought alongside multinational terrorists. There are many people who carried arms in Syria and they came to Germany as refugees. And I have people sending me pictures of militants from Syria. And they say, this person kidnapped me, this person killed my cousin, this person did this and did that. And they send me pictures and videos of people are driving tanks, they were on PKCs, and they are refugees here in Germany. And at the beginning, I
Okay.
thought that this is just like they don't know about it. So I started sending photos or this footage to the police, but nothing happens to them. So I stopped even caring about this case, to be honest with you, because it's just fruitless because there is no action from the other side.
Yeah. So most of them, most of the refugees that came in were Muslim. You're saying that they're having a difficult time assimilating, even just with jobs, like just so even the ones that didn't carry arms and they weren't the actual militants inside of Syria. What about the others? So there's a lot of why are they having a difficult time? Well, first of all, what is assimilation? What does that look like exactly? And why are they having a difficult time in particular assimilating, do you think?
I mean, assimilation is a very difficult process. It could take for 3 generations or 4 generations for the people to be assimilated. I myself, I have an Armenian background, and my grandparents came 3 generations ago, and we haven't assimilated in Syria. We integrated, but we didn't assimilate into the Syrian
What's
society.
the
We still
difference?
have the integration is to accept the values and the language and the working environment, for example, in Germany, but you keep as well your identity. Like you accept the values in Germany, you respect it, you don't violate the laws, the regulations, you don't say that the German values or the German Christian, for example, or any other events are against the rule of God. You don't try to abolish what
Mhm.
Germany has established in the past. But assimilation is to become like a German. You become a
Ah,
German. I
okay.
myself,
Okay.
I'm married to a German, and I don't think that I will become a German anytime. So even if I receive a German passport, I will always respect the German. I will always put Germany's interest above everything else. This is why I
Yeah.
say that I'm integrated, because I feel grateful for Germany to receive me and give me a second chance to restart my life. So I will always respect that. But assimilation is to become a German. And that is something very difficult, even for the Germans. Like someone like my wife. Sometimes I feel like she needs more assimilation into the German society because she doesn't act as real German as many Germans do.
But she was born and
So
raised there, right? She's German.
exactly. But she doesn't behave like a German, let's say, and she likes more Oriental, everything from music, from
Okay.
food, from
Okay.
our family traditions and relationships. In Germany, is completely different, in my opinion. Now, why some people suffer from integration? There is a big cultural shock, in Germany. I mean, in Syria, you can find from the most right, let's say, Islamist person whose wife has to wear a burqa and he forces it on his wife, etc., into the complete opposite. You have the nightlife, you have people going to parties, you have women wearing miniskirts, and all the in between. So
Mhm.
if the person coming from the far, let's say, conservative Islamist side, that's, in my opinion, impossible to integrate into the German society. This person couldn't integrate into the more progressive Syrian society. How can he or she integrate into the German society? So here
Right,
comes
which
the
is even
clash.
more so. Sure.
Yeah,
How do
but
you
these
think that
people
what
are not.
go
There
ahead.
is just one. I want to explain to the people, like, these people who cannot integrate into Germany are either Wahhabis or the Salafists or believe in the Muslim Brotherhood ideology. Those are ideological perspectives and not a religion itself. I mean, I lived most of my life in Syria, And I haven't faced problems with the Muslim people there. In the contrary, the Muslims rescued my grandparents when the Ottomans massacred us. Right? We found a safe haven there. We found a refuge there in Syria. We worked with them. We communicated with them. We studied together and everything. We didn't suffer from discrimination from the Muslim people, but there is a trend of radicalizing the Muslim youth by Saudi Arabia and Qatar and weaponize them against some of their enemies, for example, Assad or Iran. And this happens to be always also the enemies of the United States. But now, after MBS came to power, MBS said something clear. We are not going to export Wahhabism any longer. We are not going to indoctrinate the Muslim youth around the world. We don't want to export radicalism. And that's good news for the Middle East. We disagree with him politically, but ideologically speaking, at least he's not exporting this ideology any longer to Syria. And this will reflect positively on Europe. Because if the Syrians and the Iraqis and the rest of the Middle Easterners are back to their normal lifestyle and not indoctrinated every day, somebody is on TV telling them that they have to wage a jihad against the minorities in Syria, they do this and that, this will reflect positively on Europe. Because the refugees and the migrants are coming from the Middle East to Europe. And this is something that Assad warned the Europeans for a long time. He said, don't send weapons, ammunition, and aid to these people. Because once you do, and when these people come to Europe, you cannot really put the scorpion in your pocket and expect for the scorpion not to bite you. And this is happening now in Germany with these terrorist attacks, heinous terrorist attacks, knife attacks against ordinary people. Unfortunately, some of them are from Syria. But these people have been supported by the European governments when they were slaughtering us in Syria. But once they arrived here, they are called refugees. And I'm just being very specific about these particular people who were radical and they carried arms in Syria.
Yeah. What percentage of the Muslims that do you think entered? Well, let me back up just for a second for those who are watching and who are not totally familiar with Wahhabism and Salafism, Salafi Islam. This was an ideology that Wahhabi came from Saudi Arabia. It was actually a family. The guy had the last, it was Wahhab. They married the Saudi, they integrated the two families, the Sauds and the Wahhabs, and created the Saudi Arabian monarchy, essentially, and used religion as a way to control the population into compliance towards the Saudi family, right? That's like the root. I think, when did it start? Like 1930s or something. That's like when Wahhab was around, a long, long time ago. And now the Saudis will say that the United States encouraged them to do this. And, that's probably a different discussion for another day. But because Saudi Arabia is Mecca, the main hub for Islam, a lot of the imams would go and train in Saudi Arabia, and they would then go and start mosques or work in these mosques all around the world. And seems like a really terrible idea, but it highly destabilizing, was to take this. Wahhabism is a very, very radical. That's the root of all of these terror groups. So it's a very small percentage of Muslim belief, but it's grown because all the imams were training in this form of Islam, and then they were going and taking it to these mosques and radicalizing people. And those radical people are where we get the recruiting for ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, right? All of these different. Pretty much every single radical terrorist organization is rooted in this ideology that was exported by Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia will say, well, there's a lot of documentation that the U.S. Basically encouraged this in order to destabilize these countries, in order to radicalize the Muslims. A lot of the idea in the beginning was to fight against the Soviets, right? It was like, well, if we radicalize these people, then they'll fight the Soviets from an it'll give them a reason to fight them, like an ideological call of God to fight, which is always the best. If you can get somebody to believe God's telling you to do it, you're going to get a real fighter. So this ideology has been pervasive. What has been great is that the new prince, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, has come out and said, we're not going to do that anymore. We're not going to be exporting this ideology. And this ideology has been something that even China's been fighting. The Uyghur population was heavily radicalized with these mosques and these imams, right, that were Wahhabist. So that was actually the Uyghurs actually was the largest one of the hottest recruiting grounds, I think, for Al-Qaeda and even into the Taliban in Afghanistan. So it's been that ideology specifically is the radical, if they could, and I think China's method has been to deprogram, right? They put them in these camps and they say, we're going to de-radicalize you from this radical version of Islam. That is, I don't even know what it would be like for Christians. You know, it's like, what would be the
It's the
sect
same
of
thing in Europe.
Christianity?
No, but it's the same thing in Europe. If somebody goes to fight in Iraq or in Syria and he was part of ISIS, he was born and raised, let's say, in Germany or in Sweden, and he comes back from Syria, from the war zone, they sent him to the de-radicalization school here.
Right.
It's the same here
Well,
in Europe.
Well, that's what I'm wondering is how do you then, what percentage of these Muslims that came over? Because one thing people should understand, this is a minority Muslim sect. It has
Yes.
grown because it has been allowed, not just allowed to grow, but it's been promoted to grow in order to destabilize regions. I believe it's been exported even into Asia. There's a big ISIS problem in the Philippines and Indonesia, all in an attempt to stop China in order to destabilize those regions to hinder the Belt and Road
Yes.
Initiative. So we've been using this as a weapon for a long time. It's come back to bite us quite a few times, right?
Yeah.
9/11 would be one. But what percentage of this? But I want to make really clear to the audience that these are it's a dangerous side. Most of the people who practice Wahhabism, Salaf, and they don't even call themselves that, right? They call themselves
Mm.
Salafist, I think is more
No.
apt to
Yes.
what they might say.
Yes.
But the people that practice this, the majority of them are still not dangerous. The majority of those who still believe this, they're more extremely conservative, more extreme, but they're not dangerous. But the dangerous groups do come from this ideology, but it is a minority within a minority
Yeah.
that is this ideology. But
That's
it
true.
is in our best interest, I think, as the world to, just like we did denazification, right, in Germany, there should be a concerted effort. But of course, the West doesn't want to do it because they're still weaponizing it. But there should be a concerted effort to eradicate this form of Islamic ideology. I mean, this is the dangerous form, in my opinion. It should be people should be
Actually,
de-radicalized out of it.
yeah, Kim, I live in Germany and we have people who still believe in Nazism here, but they're on the periphery. Nobody gives them
Okay.
training, nobody gives them weapons, right? And the same thing is, for example, in Syria. The people who believe in this ISIS ideology are fringe minority. And that's
Yeah.
why they needed to export over 100,000 multinational jihadists from all around the world to Syria because there is no fertile ground for the people to accept the ISIS ideology. People,
Hmm.
Syrians didn't join ISIS or Al Nusra. It was the tens of thousands of people, for example, Uyghurs. We have 15 to 20,000 Uyghurs in Syria fighting against the Syrian government. We have Chechen leaders from the First and Second Chechen War. We have from the Caucasus countries, for example. This was all intelligence work. They wanted for these jihadists to come to Syria because the Syrians were not ready to carry arms and join ISIS or Al Qaeda and fight against the government. Only small minority of Syrians participated in this. Therefore, imagine that we have a neo-Nazi groups here in Germany, and then all the neo-Nazi groups from all around the world come and join a fight against the German government. And this is something
Yeah.
happening nowadays, by the way, in Ukraine, because there were
Right.
training camps in Ukraine after 2014 for these neo-Nazi groups to come and hold guns and train on guns and prepare for this war, right? This is a similar scenario. Neo-Nazism and this type of Wahhabism, which is similar to Nazism, by the way, because
Yeah.
I assure you, Kim, I watched hundreds of videos of the ISIS terrorists. The only question they ask you, what is your religion? And what is your sect? There is no more discussion with them. If you're a Christian, you're already dead. If you're
Yeah.
a minority Muslim sect, you're already, they will slaughter you. So it was based on this, let's say, terrorism and discrimination against the others, and similarly happening in Ukraine. The real question here is, if we want to eradicate this ideology, we have to keep it on the fringe of the society, on the periphery,
Hmm.
like they will
Hmm.
always exist. But when we empower them, this is the result. And then the backlash, the repercussions of the Syrian war will reflect on Europe because Europe is on the borders with Syria. I mean, our borders is with Turkey, and Turkey opened 800 kilometers a long border for all these multinational jihadists to come to Syria. And when they started to escape, they let them, the Erdogan government let them go to Europe. right? Because they wanted to blackmail Europe to receive funds, to receive money. Now Turkey
Yeah.
wants to restore relations with Syria, and they say, oh, now we have 3 million Syrian refugees, we want to send them back. But now, I mean, they have done huge damage to Syria. They have destroyed entire cities with this conflict, you know. So Turkey has to pay a price for what it did.
So how do
Qatar
you
too, by the
suggest,
way.
yeah, what percentage would you say of the Muslims that came into Germany are Wahhabists?
I would say probably 1%.
So it's real
Because
small.
it's the same percentage in Syria, you know. The same percentage in Syria. There are no people. For example, the major two big Muslim Sunni cities in Syria are Aleppo and Damascus cities. And in these two cities, there were no armed insurgency inside the city against the government. People rejected it. In Aleppo, if you go to the Muslim neighborhoods, you will hear music. You will hear people are dancing. You will hear people are going to a roller coaster for with their sons to parks. People are just living their normal lives, you know.
Hmm.
And this was the strange thing that the Syrians didn't expect, how this war could happen in the country. I was myself shocked because I didn't believe that the Syrians would do it. But then we had the burden, which is coming, let's say, the pressure coming from outside, an invitation of everyone to come to Syria. We have over 100 different nationalities came to fight in Syria, 120,000 different nationality, 120,000 multinational jihadists against us, let's say. And I say us because I'm a Syrian. They don't believe in the Syrian identity. They want to create an Islamic caliphate. They want to raise the black flag. And this was supported directly by the regional intelligence agencies, Turkey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and behind them, the United States, Israel. This is a serious question. Like, why would Israel support Al Qaeda in Syria?
Hey guys, this was just a clip of a longer show. Catch the full show by going to KimIversonShow.com. It is free. It airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. You could go back now and watch this full interview. I highly recommend it. Again, go to KimIversonShow.com. Thank you so much for watching.